Greetings, 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 everyone. Steve, Paracords of Kindness. How are you doing today? Hopefully your weaving's been happy. What I have for you today is I'm going to show you how I stitch or double stitch a wide Bane's cuff. I'll just show you some examples of ones I've made in the past. This would be a maroon core with olive drab and maroon and gold stitching. These are some of my favorite colors right here. And this is a 3/4 inch buckle. Here's one I did, and I tried something on this one. This is I forget exactly what green this is. Green core, black, and then I come back with, I believe emerald green is the stitching on this. And I did some gold right here in the middle. And I didn't really like that so much. I may try it again. But this one's also on a 3/4 inch plastic buckle. Now this is the one we'll be working on today right here. This has got a black, it's a 1 inch tactical buckle. It's got a black core, anthracite bracelet, and it's got maroon stitching. When I say double stitching, I mean I've never seen a video on how to do this inner thing. It's the same, for anybody who's ever made one of these or attempted to make one of these, the issue's always been the core strands are independent or separate from the cord that's actually woven to make the bracelet. And that's the issue. And that's where the brick wall, the stopping point, that's the point that kind of confuses everybody, I think. Well, stick around to the end of the video and I'll show you. I just kind of give a bird's eye view of how I set up my core strand on this. And like I say in the video, I may do a tutorial on how I do this, in full. But there's plenty of tutorials out there. This one is very labor intensive. It takes a while to do it. But I am going to show you how to do the stitching. So with that said, stick around and we'll get to it. Okay, folks, I'm back. If anybody was wondering, stitched Saturn, I'll leave the link in the description. And this is a 3-cord Cobra belly. Also, leave the description or the link in the description. Okay, now with that said, I almost did a tutorial on how I make this, but I didn't. I haven't made one in a while, and I wanted to make sure that I could remember exactly how I did it. So I didn't want to be fumbling through the process on camera, if that makes sense. I may revisit this one, but I'll tell you, for anybody who's ever made this thing is not the easiest, wide Bane scuff is not the easiest bracelet to make. And I pull my knots, like I say, neat, clean, tight. I pull my knots extremely tight. I mean, this thing is hard, right? And it's labor intensive. It takes a little while. I worked on this thing on and off for about 2 days to finish it. I'd sit it off to the side and I'd come back or whatever. But I finished it, and I'll most likely do a tutorial one day on this. I don't make these very often. But next time I decide to make one, I'll most likely make a tutorial for it. Okay, let's see. But stick around at the end of the video, and I'll just kind of give a bird's eye view, if you will, of how I've set up this core strand. Because I know making one of these, I've seen a lot of the tutorials, and I personally wanted to do it differently because I wanted it to look neat, clean, and tight. Not that other people's work is not. It's not to my liking. I'll put it that way. But I'll just kind of give the basics on how I did the core strands on this. But anyway, with that said, I know there's videos out there on how to stitch one of these. But me, what I'll be doing today, you saw in the introduction there. This one, I've got 2 rows of stitching. One down the side, which I've seen videos on how to do that. And then this one right here. It's the same exact thing. There's no difference. It's just that when I make mine, those knots are so close together that it allows you to do this stitching right here. If you're careful with your tension, if you pull too much, it falls in the crack and disappears. But if you do it just right, you can get it and it'll look good. And like I said, I showed these. I've made a couple of these. I made one that a while back. That was the last one I made. It was for a customer. It was midnight blue and colonial blue and all that. Okay, for those wondering, I'll go ahead and tell you the core on this one is black and the actual weave itself is anthracite. Okay, and we're going to be using maroon to stitch it. I'm doing a dark theme type bracelet. And I've got about 3 feet, which is probably going to be more than I need, but as always, I would rather have too much and have to cut off a piece of scrap than not have enough. Okay? Now, with that said, let's get into this and I'll show you. This is not that, stitching one of these things is so much easier than actually making one of these things. I'll say that. Okay. With this said, we'll start. Like most here, let me zoom in a little bit. Hopefully you'll be able to see all this because these are darker colors. And like I say in all my videos, I am not a filmmaker. That is not what I do. I make paracord bracelets. I know how to make bracelets. Not quite sure how to film stuff though. So if it's bad lighting, out of focus, I get out of frame. I do that quite often. I apologize. But if you just stick around and listen, hopefully I can show you how to do this. Okay, listen, let me back out just a little bit. That way I got a bigger target to hit. Okay, all we're going to do is we'll flip it over on the back, and first off, we're going to anchor our cord. So, I'll show you what we're going to do right here. I'll show you right here. We're going to come out right here. This piece going across the side, we're going to come out right at the top of it. Okay, so we'll flip it over. That means we need to go down through right in this area somewhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up and I'm going to go up under these 2 side wraps, side dots, if you will. Okay, now, like I say, I weave these things pretty tight. Like I've seen in my videos, I pull a knot as tight as I can get it, because I want it to be neat, clean, and tight. And I know there are some that you can't pull tight because you'll capsize or distort the knot and it won't look right. But the ones that I can, oh yeah, they're tight. So I'm gonna have to fight with this. You can always bend a bracelet backwards on itself, so to speak, so you can kind of get in there straight. Because if you come in at an angle to try to get in there, you risk the chance of snagging those core strands in there or whatever. So, you can always bend one of these things back on itself just a little bit. That way you can get a straight running shot through there, if that makes any sense. Okay. And on this one, I'll say this too. A little tip right here. You see how on this one you got 2 core strands? If you run your needle kind of in that groove between them core strands, there is a small opening there that you can get your fit or stitching needle. You can get it through there, right? Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to run it through these 2. Okay, and the same thing. You can always bend that thing back. That way we don't jam it through this piece of gray, this piece of anthracite right here. Okay, got it through there. Well, as always, when you're stitching, press it back down with your thumb. That way you got some resistance when you go to pull and you don't accidentally pull it all the way through and you have to do this again. All right, always leave you a little slack. And I say this, here's your tip right here. Always leave you some slack, more than you think you should need. Why? Because when you do this first, on any stitching job, the first little stitch you do, when you go to pull it tight, sometimes you pull it too tight, and it'll suck this cord up. Well, if you got a bunch of slack out here, and you do pull it too tight, maybe it won't suck it all the way through. Does that make sense? Okay, now, let's see. Like I said, we're going to go through right here in this area. And we're going to come out right there. And the thing is about these, the gaps that you're going through, where you're putting your needle through, they're there. Now, on my bracelets, you can't see them very well, but they're there. It's not like you're trying to fight through the middle of a knot, like you're going through a maze, groping in the darkness through a maze. No, these are pretty easy on this one. But this first one's kind of tricky because the core strands, they angle in just a little bit right here at the top. Oh, and anybody's wondering, this is a 1-inch buckle, or I guess that would be 25 millimeters for our brothers and sisters across the pond. I think that's what it equates to, 25 millimeters. But it's a 1-inch. It's a 1-inch Cobra buckle or tactical buckle. All right, so let me see if I can't get this through here, because it's kind of hard to see. Yeah, there it is. See? Bam, right through there. No problem. See where I went through? And you can see where I come out. Now, I'll get it over here on the edge where I want it. Just give me a second. I'm going to go ahead and get the needle ran through there. Mindful of the twist. Always be mindful of your twist. Okay, now to get that over there, you just kind of push it over there, really. That's all you do. As always, hold that first piece. We don't want it to get sucked up in there. We'll try to hold it. But we're going to take it and we're going to just run it over here to the side. And put maybe a little tension on it to get it to go. Kind of fall in that groove. See, right? I know it's hard to say. I apologize, man. I'm not a filmmaker. Right there. I've been thinking about getting me an overhead light that might work. I don't know if it'd work or not. I don't really have any place to mount one up there that would be good. So I'm probably going to have to rig me something. But right there is where we want it. And it's going to run all the way down. Okay? Okay, now, this first one is just slightly different than the rest of them. Once you get this first one done, the rest of them are pretty easy. Okay, we got it there. Now, all we're going to do on this one is we're going to go right below this little wraparound piece. We're going to go right here below it. You got 2 core strands, and you got another core strand right over here. You're going to go right here, just to the right of these 2 core strands, but below this little gray piece coming out. So right in this area. Right? And we're going to come out right here in this area. Right in this area somewhere. Okay? Now let me get it through there and I'll show you. See? I'm not having to fight with this at all because it goes right through there. There's a gap. You're not having to anything. You're not having to get them. Well, I mean, yeah, you got to get your angle right, but it's pretty much just straight through. You got to get the angle right, but it's pretty much straight through. It's not like the one I did for this. Hey, you got to get that angle just right to get it to go through there. Okay, see? We just kind of put it on there and we pull it tight. Now, okay. What we're going to do now, this is one of those where you go down below the knot and you come back up and you stitch it. So basically what we're going to end up doing on all these, we're going to go down below the knot and we're going to come up from the back. We'll go through and we'll wrap toward the top on the front. And we'll just keep doing that. You see what I'm saying? So you're going to go down 2, up 1, down 2, up 1, down 2, up 1 as we work our way down. That's all there is to this. All right, so. But we got to get that first. We got that first one. Now we're going to go to the second one. And we're going to do it in the same, right here where we come out, we're just going to go down to the next one. And we're going to go through right here. And we're going to come out in the same spot on the front side. Get over here so I can see. See, it goes right through there. Yeah, like I said, stitching one of these is so much easier than making one. But see where I went through. You can see where I come out. Now, we're going to come out and we're going to wrap up toward the top. Like I said, we're going to go up, down 2 and up 1. Now, right? Now that we got this the setup there. Okay, pull your little, get your little pull. Okay, now, let's see if I can explain this. When we come out, I've seen from me doing this video, how you want your stitching, every time you stitch, you want, when you stick that needle through, you want it to come out on the same side. You want it to be uniform. Like if you come out on this side this time, the next time you want to come out on this side. You don't want to alternate it back and forth on which side. Does that make sense? And I'll show you. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about on the back of these bracelets. If you look at this gold, I know it's kind of hard to see, but if you look at it, you see how it comes through on the top side. It's out here. And it goes back through the bracelet on that side. So you see how kind of every one of them's like that for the most part. There might be 1 or 2 of them that doesn't fall into that, but because this is the non-display side. But I try to keep it uniform no matter what. But if you look, you see how those gold ones, they're all angled this way. The top is on this side and the bottom is on this side. Does that make sense? That's what I'm talking about. It's the same way with this stitching. And then the other side, it's the same. It's always toward the outside of the bracelet. That's just the way I do it. Does that make sense? See how they're all like that? I don't see any of them out of whack. They all look like that. Now you think, what does it matter? Well, sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't matter so much right here because you don't see this side, but sometimes the way you do it back here does have an effect on the way it looks on the front. Now, not so much with this one. Not so much with this one, but it's the little things like that. Neat. That falls into the keep it neat. Okay, now, what we're going to do here, we're just going to, like I said, we're going to back up 1 and we're going to go through right here. And we're going to make sure that we come out. This is the only part about it. You got to make sure that we come out on the right side. Correct. See where I'm coming out? It's toward the outside of the bracelet. So here's the one we did. The one we already did is over here on this side. And I'm coming out on this side. You see that? And that's all there is to it. Now that's the pattern right there. And we pull this through, mindful of the twist, so I can get it out. Kind of give it a little snug. Bam. And we just do the rest of them. Okay. Like I said, we're going to go down 2. When I say down 2, so if I can get this on camera, we'll move everything out of the way. Hang on. Stay in frame, Steve. We come out here, so we're going to go down 2. We're going to count 1, 2. I'm counting these pieces right here, these wraparounds on the side. So we're going to cross over 1, and then 2, and then we're going to go through right here. Y'all see that? Okay. See how easy that is? It's really easy. The hardest part about this one is keeping these, when you come out on the back, keeping 1 to the left, 1 to the right. That's the difficult part. Other than that, this is pretty easy. It's pretty fast too. Mindful of the twist. When you get there, give it a little cinch. When you come back, like I said, we went down 2. Now we're going to go up 1. We come out right here. Oh, see what I'm saying? Where we come out at. I know. Here, let me fix this light. Maybe this will help a little bit. I'll get it angled up here just a little bit. Hang on just a second, folks. Oh yeah, that made it a lot better. See? Maybe I am learning how to make fit movies. Next thing you know, they'll sign me to make the next Terminator movie. But you see, we're going to go, here, let me get my needle. We come out here, and we're just going to go up 1. Like I said, we went down 2, now we're going to go up 1. And we're going to go through right here. Now, this is where you got to be mindful. Make sure you go through, you come out. Bam, right there. Going through right there. And we're coming out. I know it's out of focus. We're coming out on this side, toward the outside edge of the bracelet in relation to that other piece of Maroon Micro cord, which is toward the center of the bracelet. See that? That's all there is to it. And you just repeat this pattern all the way down. And it's pretty much the same. Now I'll come back and I'll show you. Here, I'll do one more of these. I'll let you see it, what it looks like. Now, again, see one more time on this. Get that out of the way. We see where I'm coming out. I'm coming out right here. We're going to go down 2. Count 1, count 2, and go through the hole. Yeah, when you're doing this, make sure, because if you're not paying attention, you'll stick it through the wrong hole. Go through right there. See where I'm coming at? You see where I went through. 1, 2, bam. We come out this side. And we're going to go up 1. That's all there is to this, man. It's not a hard one. Stitching these are not hard. But I figured, I'll make a video. And then we just go back up 1. We come out here. We're going to go up 1, and we're going to go through it, and we're going to be mindful. And if you get this, the way these things angle slightly, like I showed you on the gold, how that gold stitching there, it's kind of got that angle. If you do it this way, it naturally, when you put this needle through there, it automatically will come out on the outside of that piece of stitching right there. That's why I do it this way. You could do it and come out on the other side of the stitching, but you'll be fighting against the stitching, if that makes any sense. If you do it this way, it just naturally goes through, and it comes out right there where you want it to. But be mindful, make sure, but you run it through and you pull it tight, and that's all there is to it. Run it through, give it a little cinch. Makes sense? All right, now I'll come back and I'll run this to the end, and I'll come back and I'll show you how, I finish the end and how I do the next one. It's the same thing though. It's the same. You're doing the same exact thing, but you're just doing it in between here. I'll show you. You can see it on this one. It's in between. You see how there's a little groove between these 2 knots right here? These 2 knots that are right next to each other, there's a little groove right there. That's where you're going to run your stitching. We see it right here. It's in the maroon on this bracelet. But I'll finish this and I'll come back and I'll show you how to do it. And I'll go ahead and might as well show you how to cut and burn all the ends of this. But it's not pretty hard. And y'all know this is why I do this. For anybody who, I never cut and burn the ends of the bracelet if I know I'm going to be stitching. Why? Because that cut and burn, that big glob of melted plastic, may get in the way of you trying to stitch. You may be trying to go through right where that big glob of plastic is, right? So that's why you leave some slack. And you leave enough that, potentially the ends don't get sucked back through. Right? And then in the very, very end, when you get done, the bracelet's done, the stitching done, everything's done, you cut and burn all in one. Now, hopefully, ideally you would want to have all your cut and burns in one spot. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. But you at least you do them all at the same time. You know, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here. Bam, you do it and you're done. Right? Okay. With that said, I'll come back. I'll do this one. I'll run it out and I'll come back and I'll show you the other side. Okay, folks, I'm back. I ran it out to the end, as you can see. Here, let me adjust this light again. Maybe we can get that lighting good. I ran it out to the end. Except for the last one. I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, if we look, we can see all the pieces they have an angle like that. Makes sense? Like I said, it doesn't come into play so much on this bracelet because it is the back side. But sometimes that non-display side and the way you do the stitching on that side does have an effect on what it looks like on the front. So, you know, be mindful of that. Okay, well, this last one is the same thing. There's nothing special. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to see because I got all these cords out of the way, but we're going to go down 2 and through that last one. Like the pattern. We're coming out right here, and we're going to go down 2. 1, 2. So we're going to go down here all the way at the very end of the bracelet. Right there, and there's a big, huge gap right there. So I mean, it's not like it's going to be anything difficult right there. Well, we go through there. All right. And I'm going to go back up 1, and we're going to cover this last one right through here. Okay, something's not sitting right. What's the deal here? Yeah, that piece is not wanting to. See what I'm saying? We see how, maybe if I can get this in focus, you see how this piece of maroon right here, you see how this side of it's kind of angling in? Yeah, we want to try to fix that. I know why this one is, because that's the way the core strands are running. That one right there shouldn't be. It doesn't make for them to all be lined up in a line. Now this one's not perfect. If you look down it, it's not perfectly straight, but yeah, it's a pretty good job. For those who know, have ever made one of these, you know these things are not that easy to get lined up and perfect and all that. So, you know. Okay, why is that not? Here, give me a second, folks. Let me see if I can't get that straight. What did I do there? I can't see because I moved the light. I moved the light so the camera can see. Now I can't see. Okay, that straightened it up. Now we're going to take the end of this. We see where it's coming out here. Let's show you. It's coming out right here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just kind of run it by and go through this little loop I've got right here. And all this loop is, it's just one of these. It's one of the very last ones. And you can get all them cords through there. It's a tight fit, but once you kind of loosen it up a little bit, you can go back through and you can tighten it up. But that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to run it through right there. See what I'm saying? Just following all the rest of them through there. You know, bend your buckle back if you need to get in there. Don't jam it through anything. That's it. And that's it. Like I said, I told you I started off with 3 feet. I said that'd probably be more than I needed. Well, you see how much I got left. Let's see. I got a foot right there. There's a foot. So this next piece I have to cut, I'm going to cut this. Oh, this next piece I cut it about 2 feet and 6 inches. You always want to make sure. See if I can explain this. Some of you may have experienced this. You get down to the end and you've got some slack, like that piece of microcord. You've got some slack on it, but you don't have enough. Depending on the length of your stitching it, you don't have enough to bend it back over itself and get the tip through the hole you want it to go through. And you're over here trying to fight and you can't get it in there because you don't have enough slack. Does that make sense? You always want a piece. Your slack should at least be, longer than your fid. Yeah, about 1 inch longer than whatever your fid is. But, okay, let's see. We're going to start this one. This is the same way, man. This is the same thing as the other side, or what we just did. Yeah, there we go. Make sure I always make sure it's in there that it's not going to come out. That's just me, though. Okay, now, on this one, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to move over one. Let's see. So look at the other one. Let's see. Here's where we started. Right here's where we started this piece of gold. It goes up under these two. Now, this maroon stitching, you can see the cut and burn right here, and it goes up under these two. And it goes through right up in here, this area. And it's the same thing. We're going to do the same thing. I mean, we could. Let's try that. I bet you I can do that. That way we'll have, instead of having cut and burn here, having 4 different cut and burns, if we run them all through right here, or not all of them, but these 2 that are on this side of the bracelet, run them up under this. Anchor them right here. That way we have 1 cut and burn. You see what I'm saying? And when we come out up here, we can just kind of cross over to where we need it to be. Does that make sense? I always try to consolidate your cut and burns. That way you don't, they're going to be on the bracelet. I've had people question me about that. And I'm like, that's how these things are made. There's no way around it. If I don't do that, then your bracelet will come unraveled. And, that's just the nature of this. But we try to keep them on the non-display side. But we're gonna try this. Let's see if I can get this through here. Just like we did before. We're gonna go up under these 2 grays. But we're gonna try now that we got this one maroon running in that groove I spoke about. We're gonna try not to snag any of it. Have a tendency to potentially snag that maroon piece of microcord, which we don't want to do that. But we're going to try this. Let's see. And since we're going to go, this piece we're about to stitch, since it's going to be toward the center of the bracelet, let's try to do it on this side of that one we've already anchored. Make sense? Bend it back if you have to, right? Okay, right there's what I think we got it. Yeah, there we go. Push it through, pull it up here, just enough to get through, and then what do? We mash it down with our thumbs. That way we have the friction. Oh, and I'll say this too. When you got two pieces running through there like that, before you start pulling this one through, hold that other one so it doesn't get accidentally, pulled up in there with the other one. You're just careful when you do this part right here, you should be fine. Leave about the same amount of slack. Well, let's see. I cut this piece shorter, so we pull a little bit through there. Okay, now, let's see if I can find where I'm going to go through on this one. I want to say right there in the same area, honestly. Let me go digging around here for a second. I think it's right there. Here, give me my light for a second, folks. Hang on just a second. Let me make sure I'm going to get this in the right place. Okay, I found my hole, but I come in from the front side. I'm just kind of wiggling around. Y'all know my trick. Sometimes you have to come in from the wrong side and kind of wiggle your needle and then back it out. And that makes the hole in there so you can see. Okay. When you do this, you just gonna have to find it. It's kind of right in that area, though. Right in here, right below these two knots, in between this core strand and the one right here, going right in between there. Now let me make sure I get it in there from the back side. Hang on just a second. Yeah, that's where I want it. Let's see where I'm coming out at. Now the thing is, I'll say this: if you look, right here where these two knots are, this little groove we're going to follow down through there. If you look, there's actually a core strand in between those two knots on the back side, right? So you have to make a decision. Do you want to come on the inside toward the center of the bracelet on this side of that core strand, or over here on this side? It's personal preference, really. I haven't found one way to be better, one way not to be better. But I'm doing mine on the inside toward the center of the bracelet of that core strand in there. And you're just going to do the same pattern. We're going to pull it through, mindful of our twist, and holding that piece up here, the anchor. And now we're just going to get the setup. We're going to go through right here. Like I said, there's a core strand in there, so I'm going to keep to the inside, toward the center of the bracelet from that core strand. I'm going to go right down through there. And if you look, I can see it. Now, I probably couldn't show this on camera, but I can look through there, and I can see where my needle's going to go. There's a little tiny pinhole. I can see the light from the back side of it. Hence why I work on this white mat. Well, it's not completely white, but I'll use that white sometimes in conjunction with my light, and I can see where I want it to go through at. Now this one's a little bit trickier to get through there. I mean, there is a hole there. It's just you got to put a little bit more pressure. You see where I'm going through at? Hang on, get the focus. See where I'm going through at? You see where I come out at? It's just below. See how this little knot right here on the side is angled? It's kind of got a downward angle. Same too with this one on this side. We come out right below this angled piece on this one. Same thing with this inner row. Just below. And we're going to do the same stitching pattern we did over here. We're just moving it over one. Pull the slack through. Make sure that first one seats in that little groove right there. Bam, just like that. Now you don't want to pull it too tight because it'll get pulled down in that groove too much. But you want it tight enough that it's not going to be whatever. Okay, now. We're going to come down. Remember, we're just getting our initial setup. So what we're going to do is we're coming out right here. We're going to go down just one, this first one, and we're going to go through here. Let me get it through there and I'll show you. You see where I'm going through at? And like I said, these knots, this rope. Let me get my handy dandy laser paracord pointer out. This row of knots right here, they are wrapped around that cord strand. And then right here, these knots are wrapped around a cord strand. And I'm going right between those two cord strands. Right? That's all we're doing. Now you see where I come out at. Same thing I did before. Now, once we get our needle through here, we're going to start doing we're going to go up one and go through. When we flip on the back, we're going to go down two. Remember the pattern? Down two, up one. Down two, up one. And we'll work our way all the way down to the end. That's all there is to it. But I'll do a couple of these and show you. And like I said, you want to pull it a little bit, but not so much that it causes it to the stitching to disappear in there. Now I'll say this here, just a word of warning, if you will, a little tip. These two knots, you can look at it over here. These two knots, this one and the one right next to it, they're right next to each other. But once you run that needle through there, it separates them a little bit. So that groove in between those two widens up just a little bit. So be mindful when you go to tighten this up that you don't over tighten it and it fall in that crack, right? So we're going to go up one. If I can get this to go through here. Okay, we see where I went. I come out right here where my finger is. Come out right here where my finger is, and I go up one. I'm going to flip it over. And you can see where I come out. Right here in this area. And just like over here, where I come out is toward the outside of the bracelet in relation to that piece of stitching that's already there. We see that? That way, all these are, how I told you, all these are angled a certain way. All these will be angled that way too. That makes sense? We're going to run that one through and pull it. And now this is where you got to be mindful, not to over tighten it, that it falls down in the groove. Mindful of our twists. Mindful of our twists. Now, we're going to go down 2. Just like before. Let's get this out of the way and I'll show you. We're coming out right here. So we're going to go down 2. Now remember, we're counting this one. 1, 2. So we're going to go through right here. Now these are a little bit tighter together, so you kind of got to, but there is a gap there, and it's not that hard. Once you do 1 or 2 of these, you'll see that it's pretty easy. Like I say, stitching one of these is so much easier. Whoa, wait a minute, that's not right. Down 2, Steve, down 2. Only went down 1, down 2, 1, 2. Oops, sorry, down 2, 1, 2. I went through, only went down 1. Need to go down 2. Okay. See, it goes right through there. Down 2. You can see where I ran it through. See that big gap right there? That's where I just went through in the wrong spot. But you go down 2 and you run it through. You see where I'm coming out at. And then we're going to go up 1. That's all there is to it. Right here in this here. We come out here, we're going to go up 1 and go through. Notice, again, my needle is toward the outside edge of the bracelet in relation to that piece of stitching I'm running next to. If you're mindful, they'll all fall into line like that. Just push it through. Mindful of the twists. I said, if we look, I'll show you. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. Okay, you see how these 2 knots are really tight together like I just mentioned? Okay, now if you look right there where I just ran my needle through, you can see it has separated those 2 knots. So now you got a big gap in here where we're about to do our stitching. So you got to be mindful that when you pull it, it doesn't go down in there. And you can, before you do it, you can take your finger and kind of push this outer, kind of push it back in place. That way that gap goes away. And there's no gap there's no crack for it to fall into. We don't want the ground to open up and swallow it, right? We should have learned our lesson from Cobra on that one. Okay. Down 2. And we come out. I know it's not in focus, but you get the idea. And that's all there is to this. I mean, it's not hard. And most of, even as tight as I've woven this thing, the little gap I'm running my needle through, I don't have to put a lot of force and effort into it to get it to go through there. It goes through there. You just got to make sure you're not jamming it through those core strands, especially on this one, because I can't hardly see them because they're black. See where it's going through? See where it's coming out. See again, it's toward the outside edge in relation to the piece of micro stitching I'm next to. And we just run it all the way down. That's it, folks. That's all there is to it. And like I said, pull it through, mindful of your twists. But before you pull it all the way through, reach over here with your finger and push it. And it'll close that little gap up that you just created. That way, the ground doesn't open up and your micro cord fall into it. And then you can pull it, give it a little snug. Don't pull it too tight because it will. It'll go fall in that crack. But that's it. That's all there is to this. But I'll come back when I get down to the end. Or actually, I'll go ahead and stitch it all the way out. But when I get to the very, very last one after I've done, because it's called double stitching because there's 2 rows here and 2 rows here. So you got a double row on each side, right? But I'll come back once I get done with every bit of it. I'll come back and show you how I finish it. I'll do the cut and burn. Then I'll kind of give you a bird's eye view of how I did the core strand for this, because I hadn't seen too many people put one of these on a bracelet. I've seen them done on knot and loop, and I've seen bracelets, and I don't like the way it ends down here and stuff. And so I'll just kind of give you an overview. Like I say, I may come back and revisit this, actually do a tutorial on the full thing. But with that, I'll be back in a minute, folks. Okay, folks, I'm back. I got it all stitched out. Got it all stitched out down there at the end. And the second side I did just like the first one. I ran both of them through the thing. I got all of them lined up right. And I got all the cords coming through that one loop. So that should be one cut and burn right there. And I'll go ahead and do this, and then I'll give you the kind of the brief overview of this setup on this 8-strand core I got. It's not anything complicated. Now these cut and burns up here, they can be a little tricky because you're trying to get it in between these two. You're in this little groove in between these two wraparound knots. So it can be tricky. And you want to do it so you don't see it kind of sticking out on the side. So you take them, kind of pull them toward the center just a little bit, because these are sticking. These are a little. Yeah, that'll work. Help hint burn. Since it's right on the edge of the bracelet, burn this way so the heat's not coming back toward the bracelet. It makes sense. Just little things I think about when I do this. Alright, we got it. Right there. Now this right here. Oh, let me add this in there, a little tip. When I told you that initial piece I cut was 3 feet, and then when I did that inner row of stitching, I cut it a little bit shorter. Yeah, it was almost too short. So, I'd say stick with about 3 feet, and you'll have plenty of slack, no matter. This was the last one I did. It's about 8 inches. And I cut it at 3 feet. And you see how much I have left. Because I just finished it and I didn't cut the end of the slack off. I figured I'd just do all this at one time. Okay. Now, as always, especially when we got a big cut and burn like this, we're going to make sure before we do anything, make sure everything we got's tight, pulled up. Have our smoothing tool at the ready. Let me get that out of the way. And take all this in one big lump. ain't nothing worth saving. Okay. We got them all right there. On one spot. Right in the middle. And we're going to do this the best we can. And the leather stamp that I've been using, we are Paracords of Kindness, a little heart-shaped leather stamp. If it ends up being big enough, I'll try to use that. If not, yeah, I got on a little bit. That's okay though. It's not that bad. I'll show you. If we get it to focus, I'll show you. Even I make mistakes. See, right there. I got a little heat on there. Shouldn't have. But that's okay. It's not bad. It didn't even burn through the sheath. It'll be okay. Well, there's our cut and burn. Let me see if I can get this to look at that. That'll work. Paracords of Kindness signature. Okay. There we go. Now, let's do the test. Let's see if I can get this on my wrist. Ooh, let that cool off a little bit. Still got some heat. I'll tell you this. Okay, this for anybody who's made one of these or attempted to make one of these, watched any of the tutorials for this. It's kind of tricky. The reason I say that is because the core strands, and this being an 8-strand cord, the core strands are independent or separate from the cord that's actually used to weave the bracelet. So, and a lot of the videos I've seen, or I say a lot, there's not that many that I know of. But the one that has it on a buckle, you have the core strands hanging loose out here at the bottom. And you got to figure out, okay, how do you secure it? That's the trick. And then you got to do something with them and all that. This is what I did, okay? This is the way I did it. This is a 1-inch buckle. It's a 1-inch tactical buckle. It's basically it's 8-strand cord. I started off right here at the bottom with a cow hitch. Run up. Go down through the buckle and come back down. Go through the top of the buckle and come, and that's all there is to it. But this last run, once you get to the top, the last run going toward the top of the buckle and coming back out, you'll realize that you don't have enough core strands going through this slot. The bottom, you do, because they come through. But at the top, you don't have enough core strands. And me, I like to fill out that space completely with the strands going through it, the cord going through it. And you don't have enough. So I ended up doing a cow hitch at the top. And that just created that extra strand. And then it comes back down. And it kind of locks it into place, and plus it gives you somewhere the cord that's going to make the bracelet. It gives you something to run it through. You see the 2 hitches right here where I've ran it through, right? But you set up the core strand, like I said, you start at the cow hitch at the bottom, you run it up through the top, run it down through the top, run it, and you just basically, and then you cow hitch it. And the last 2 strands, from the cow hitch running down, they just go through this buckle from the top, and they go through the buckle, and you have a slack hanging out. And you got to figure out, what am I going to do? But what I do is basically tie a simple, basic overhand knot on each of those 2 core strands that are hanging out, and get it as close to this buckle as I can. And that will keep it, when you put it on that jig and you go to tighten it up, it'll keep them core strands from sliding back up out of there. You know, just one little knot right there. That's all there is to it. You weave your bracelet, and when you get done with the weave, you take it off your jig or whatever. You take those 2 knots that you've got tied in those core strands and you untie them. So now you got two cords from the core strands, and then the 2 cords from the actual cord that makes the bracelet. So you got 4 cords, and you just back weave them up into the back of the bracelet all together. And then obviously I did the stitching, so the stitching got ran in there too. That's all that is. I've had people, when I've posted pictures of this in various social medias, I've had people asking me about that. Now, that's all there is to it. But there you go. Oh, now let's see. Let's see if we can't get this on the arm. Wide Bane's cuff with a double stitch. Just enough room to get a finger up under it so it's not too tight, but it's not too loose. And like always, you can kind of flatten it out on the edges, and it'll fit on your wrist a little bit better. But there you go. That's how you do it. But with that, I'll end this one like I end them all. Hey, give us a like, give us a share, give us a subscribe. Leave comments below. What kind of tutorials do you want? What kind of bracelet tutorials would you like to see? But with that, I'll say like I always say, keep it neat, keep it clean, and keep it tight. Happy weaving, folks.